It's one of the best introductions I've had, I have to admit. Thank you. So it's a storytelling. This is what we do. Really, it's an honor being here. And let's just have the nice big slide behind me. So he said start here. All right. So yes, thank you very much for the kind introduction. And today I've been asked to come and spend some time with you, or having an orientation specifically for NWU. I've done this a couple of times locally, online, but I've never flew. And thank you very much for bringing me here to do it in person at the university's offsite. So this is an honor for me too. And I'm really happy with the setting. Again, hospitality has been great. Even the drive from the airport to where we're staying is lovely. And I look forward to this week, because our AGM, our annual general meeting for Prime Chapter Africa, is going to be in Cape Town in a week's time, exactly a week like now, next week. All right, so let's make sure this works. All right, so the confusion of, we call it PRME, Prime, you can call it anything you want. The US call it Prime, so the Prime people call it Prime. There's a tiny trick I there, but it doesn't mean anything, it's just the pronunciation. And it stands for the Principles of Responsible Management Education. Do you hear me well? Because I like to, all right. And basically, I'm here to make the case for responsible management education, and to tell a little bit about what Prime history, some background on the Prime Initiative, the UN Global Compact Prime Initiative. So anyone's familiar with anyone works with the businesses that work for UN Global Compact? Does anyone have, know a company that's a signatory of UN Global Compact? All right, it's that kind of way in our region, I have to say. So UN Global Compact in the year 2000 is an initiative for corporations to come up and start signing up for aligning their strategies, their operations with the SDGs. And they have 10 principles. It's a business side, it's industrial, and they sign up there. What happens is, thank you. All right. I know I'm loud, so you can. All right. I don't think so. Is it working? It's just for the video. All right. Oh, for the video. Got you. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right. So, yes. So in year 2000, again, lots of businesses working on supporting the SDGs and the UN mission in this. But then after 7 years, they realized, over the years, in 2007, they realized that we keep on asking these companies to deliver on, and be leaders, show leadership roles and transformation roles for SDGs. But then what are we doing, and how can we support them as the UN in doing so? So here came the education arm, or we call it the management education arm for the UN Global Compact. And it's been called Prime, or PRME. And this is the blue logo they have all around, and it's been there since 2007. So I'll give you again a bit of background where it began. But the case for responsible management education, just, you know how it is in Africa also, we have management schools, economic schools, legal schools. So on the soft side of things, you need to know that 1/3 of global graduates of the world of higher education come from this background, all right? So if Prime really does its mission properly, you're kind of trying to reach 1/3 of the graduates of business, of higher education, and 70 million graduates per year. And again, this is the kind of potential impact we think there is for management education, if it's done right. That said, where do we stand? So the UN Global team that, in their annual meetings, they would survey CEOs, and they would talk about the fact that, we have, HR, I was just speaking to my colleague here, and she mentioned that talent management, upskilling, all the issues related to finding the right talent is a pain for CEOs in the region. And typically after our students graduate, they go to the jobs, and then there's upskilling and there's a lot of retraining, which is a good thing. But again, how much should be done within higher education? How much should be done, on site is kind of always the debate for business schools and for management schools. Now, chief academic officers, deans, or whatever they are, my colleagues here who stood up here would claim, or some of them, that 96%, we believe that we're doing our job right. 96% of us said, yeah, we can deliver this. But reality says that, no, students feel that they're short. 41% only said yes. And the business leaders who are receiving our graduates think, again, it's not really true, all right? So there's a huge gap to fill. And since we're going to do it anyway, the thought is like, why don't we do it right? Why don't we really do it towards the sustainability and the sustainable development goals? All right. This is where we are today. I mean, that's like kind of where the kind of talk or tone of talk when we meet with Prime Global. We have very strong support till today. I mean, it was Kofi Annan then, but now it's, Guterres still saying and still recognizing PRME, our Prime, as one of the most important initiatives for UN Global Compact, for the SDGs. Again, leadership is our job, right? Training leaders is what we do in the larger sense. And, this is the, so how can we create leaders who can innovate, who can be bold and take these major steps is kind of falling on the shoulders of members of Prime schools like you and my school. We call it the largest organized relationship with the UN. So it does give us, and I have to tell you, we are Triple Crown accredited AUC, but the Prime has a special place because it has that UN brand. And, I got into this serendipitously. But I have to say, every time you use the word the UN and you're members of Prime, it gives you another piece of it. So again, you go to New York, you go globally, you find sister schools doing the same thing. And it's that kind of network, I think, that's really makes this initiative different than AMBA, different than AACSB, different than AFMD, all the other ones, and ABS, which are, so we can do this and it's very African, but I think this is a very nice also initiative to attach to, or to latch to. And it's a very, as low demanding one. There's like, we'll talk a bit about what's needed, but basically a year ago when you guys got excited, some top official in your school signed a signatory promise, and in a year you have to submit a progress report. This is kind of all we ask. It's not an accrediting body. It's nothing, prohibitive. It's very inclusive. So on that tone, again, I think there's a lot to be done. And this is kind of the talk today. Some history on this one again. The excitement began, as I said, back then in around the 2000s. And the members in the room were coming from higher education. So people like you, passionate about SDGs, thought that what can we do? How can we promote this more? And how can we push it further? And these are the kind of people in the room. AACSB remained to be our biggest supporter. It's again, after the Triple Crown accreditation we have, we think that AACSB is one of the most inclusive ones. We are talking even about ways where we can align the reporting for the, like the work you're going to do for accreditation anyway can kind of fit with the SIP report and vice versa. So we're trying to be efficient about it and make sure there's a big alignment in it. Again, I think it's the accreditation bodies that are catching up now, but remember Prime was there in 2007 talking SDGs in your curriculum, in your teaching, in your research back then. All right, so is it a platform? Is it a network? It's a network, all right? And we're working on a platform right now. We have more than 800 signatories members, and and we add, and it's always adding. It became big enough, and we're in 90 countries, so we organize ourselves in terms of chapters. So Chapter Africa was launched again at AUC. I was the founding vice chair before that, so it took a year and a half to launch it. So you can say for the last 4 years in Africa, we were trying to grow this network. There were some schools because, okay, so you can, as any school, just go and sign up to Prime. We call it the mothership, the Prime Global. And what happens is the networks are organized so we can do stuff like this. We can come together, make it African, make it for us, talk about what's unique about us. So we are right now organized in chapters, and it's going to be part of the conversation. And the impact, again, out of the 800 schools is that we can really potentially reach, again, 200,000 faculty or 3 million students. So it's all about what we can do. It's not what we are today. And this is kind of the tone I'd like to bring. The 9 working groups are the research groups. And again, I'll speak about them as we navigate things. So the mission, again, and it's always nice to look at this. It says to transform management education and develop the responsible decision makers, leaders, all right, to advance sustainable development. Again, you want these missions to be over-compassing anything you're doing, and part of the SIP reporting, as you're going to see, is basically looking at, am I doing anything to do with SDGs? And let me see, maybe I should write that down. And there's a lot to be said about communication and iteration of writing what you're doing and documenting it in a certain way. Because if you say it, you believe, you act it, you believe it, and it becomes part of your DNA. The logic goes like, okay, so responsible management education will train responsible leaders, and that will create sustainable businesses that will support SDGs. Kind of the very, logical flow, but we all know that it's easier said than done. So there were 6 principles up till last year. They were the ones that began since 2007. We had a refresh, and these are the refresh ones. There's 7 now. The one that we added was the one on practice. So basically, you look at it this way, there's some on purpose and values, teaching and research, your partnerships, and then practice is how you run your organization. So what you do as deans and directors, and how you spend your money, and how you have equity in your hiring, and how you save on the water, and how your students recycle, are all part of also the new refresh one. This is the one we added. And again, how you share knowledge and how you work. So something like this would tick a big box on sharing knowledge and stuff. And we have a work session afterwards where we can talk about them in detail. But talking about our drive here, and my 2 institutions, I worked in Egypt in the GUC and the AUC, all right? And both schools are signatory members. And I didn't realize until I became chair of Prime Chapter Africa how lucky you are when you are always working in this. I thought the default was responsible management, because, you know, like, doesn't everyone do SDGs? Doesn't everyone, have these kind of value systems? My school pillars are responsible management, entrepreneurship, economic development, or regional development. So the 2 ones on the top are kind of like, how do you align as a school, as directors, as deans, your mission, or rephrase it even, to talk that language and to make, and again, it takes years. I mean, we do bottom-up strategy in our school, and we sit in rooms like this with nice breakfast, and we come up with our strategy for next year. But at the back of our mind, we're all oriented towards these principles. And then again, we navigate and we focus on our teaching and our research, and we try to count and check the boxes, whether for accreditation or for reporting our shared, shared information progress. And that's why we want to call it. It's a very kind way of just simply accumulating what you're doing and being happy and giving yourself a tap on the shoulder that you're doing something towards this. And you see your colleagues doing something, you say, maybe I can do something too. So this is kind of where it is with the sharing and the partnerships. How you link your school with other schools, with the industry, with your alumni is again part of it. And again, what you do inside. So we'll have a lot of talk about this and how, action plans can go around about this. But these are the kind of things that if they're in your school for a good 10 years, it becomes part of your DNA. And not to confuse you, because as I mentioned, we launched the Prime in AUC, the Prime MENA region. So we were part of the MENA region before, and that's how AUC was part of the Prime network 10 years or 12 years back. And the GUC was back then. So as individually, you could always sign to Prime, but then what happened in the last 3-4 years is we now organized in chapters, and now this is Prime Africa, where again, you guys, again, a lot of your universities that are, I think as Cape Town University was also 10 years old. So if you go to these schools, you find that the tone and the DNA of the school really does change. And it's a journey, and we have, again, some ideas of how to go about it. So these are the principles, and these are the refresh principles. They're not new ones, they're the refresh ones with the new practice one. And now there's 7. So if you hear the word 6, are you seeing the website 6? Yes, they were 6 up till last year. All right, so this is kind of the introduction. Now it's like more for if you're really engaged and you want to know what we can offer you, and this is kind of the value proposition that the chapters try to offer, that the Prime Global tries to offer, is we work to equip you for impact, whether it's teaching and learning. And we're going to spend most of maybe the orientation on this part. We work in knowledge exchange, all right, where we have a global forum and a couple of events and that are major, but again, we can organize as chapters our own events. And this is the key one, which was what made Prime Prime. It's like, how to report, and again, in the largest generic sense, share your progress in some kind of documentation, and there's a lot of advancement happening here, and I'll share it with you also as I go. So these are the 3 things that I want to focus on. I want to pause here for questions, if anyone has questions. Okay, because I know some of you are here for orientation. This is kind of the orientation one, but now we might go a bit into what can we do together, and what can schools do together, and what can do as a team in your school. All right.
Where's research in that cycle?
It will be here, equip, right now. Okay, so this is, see, everyone, I'll spend the coming maybe 10-15 minutes on equip for impact. So in the equip, it's teaching and learning, and we believe that research should be done with some kind of practical application to SDGs. So it would be under the working groups. And the working groups are, some of you might be members already of the working groups. So there's 9 working groups. There's going to be again, another refresh for those. But back in 2007, there were the 6 principles and the working groups, nothing else, as an organized thing. And okay, so the good question, Yvonne, because basically, it's not what we like in our careers is that you have the the freedom to pursue whatever research you want to do, and then you go teach, and then we do some service, right? So research cannot be top to bottom. It has to be bottom up. So what happens here in the research one, we created these hubs of focus ideas where people would just sign up in these network groups, and it's part of CRIME, which doesn't typically align with the very systematic chapter one. So I'll go about it, but yes, good question. So the best one, I mean, the one that I think is working these days, and my colleague Meta Morsing, who stepped down last year, she was the director who really mobilized these chapters, and I was chapter 16. I think China is joining it. Actually, we're the latest chapter. China's still foot in, foot out, and they have some political issues, but they're joining, and they come to our meetings. But we are 17 chapters, all right, in PRIME. Again, Africa is one of the most recent ones. We are organized in a sense that when we take everything they offer us, and we have to have our own agenda, we have our own annual meetings, we have our own network. So when I when I became the chair, we had like maybe 18, 19 schools who are individually signatories. So we would have to reinforce the relationship, because you can't fall off if you don't submit the report not on time. I mean regularly. You become what we call a non-communicating member, and this is something you don't want to fall into. So basically, one of the things is that as a chapter chair, I have to remember my schools, come talk to them and see who's falling behind and what needs to be done. So there's that kind of follow-up that is nicely captured. And now we're 30 schools in Africa, again, because of these events we hold. So every time we have an AGM, maybe in Egypt or Cairo, you guys got excited and then you joined us. This is actually our homepage. So under PRIME Network, this is the launch, which happened only, I think, 15 months ago. It was January 2023. And I see Yvonne here, and some of you can spot yourselves. I can see you in that photo. We had a lovely, it was actually, and this is what I like to do for my chapter, is like when there's an annual event where it already has a lot of participation from African institutions, I like to do it either the day before or the day after, so the event. So we have already that kind of people flying in. We don't want people to just come in for this event. And then we do the local ones that don't need a lot of travel, whether in Egypt or in South Africa and such. And we're having one in Strathmore also in Kenya, so we kind of rotate there. So you have the resources there, and you have the governance document. So a lot of, we meet every 2 months. There was an election opened. Again, maybe it's a bit too early for you guys, but being involved in running the chapter and being saying what we should do, where we should go, what programmatic stuff should we offer, is all part of what we do. We meet every 2 months formally, but informally, we're working at the back end of this, organizing everything that we want to do for Africa. We have a very clear governance document. Actually, it's open there, and if anyone's looking at partnerships or networks, feel free to see what's been designed, because we made it very African too. I chose to have deans and directors there, part of the board. So I have their commitment level, and again, a lot of other chapters are copying this now because they see that we can mobilize things much better. The resources would have the reports, or the SIP reports from your colleagues. And it becomes an informal competition where every school showcases what they're doing. And it's a beautiful, it's still in PDF format, so you can just go on and check out what's happening. And this is kind of the contact persons of the members, and this is all for Africa. And the link is there, and again, just Google PRIME Chapter Africa, it will come up. As I mentioned, we formally in our governance document, we have to have an annual general meeting where we vote on big topics. And when the new members are joining, we had nominations open till last week. We got enough candidates, and we're going to mention their names. Again, in Cape Town, the university hosting the CSI conference. So we're going to just pick a day before, and we're part of their programmatic. They're hosting us with a very generous also, lunch, and we're sitting there, and we have a full day agenda. This is, since we came here, a lot of us, and we'll be there. Sorry, it's a bit small, but basically we do the formal business. Takes 45 minutes to do the voting, the calling, me formally updating my member schools on where we were, what we were doing, which actually I just did to PRIME Global. So every January in PRIME Global, I report back, And then I have the AGM and I report to the network schools. Then we usually typically have a exciting topic where we invite speakers. This is it's going to be updated one because we had a speaker with some kind of conflict, and then we're bringing someone in. But again, we have a very nice, exciting panel session. And then we're going to do a training session for one of our key, one of our most recent advancements, which has to do with pedagogy, called I5, and I'll speak about that also. All right, so this here takes care of just this square here. I expand a bit on the chapter because I'm here in that capacity. So this is this block here, the prime chapters, okay? We have the prime champions, we have the working groups for research, we have global students, and we have the I5. So these are what we're here to equip you with this. So if you're in this room, whether you are passionate about teaching or running a program or you research or you're working with student organizations or again, you want to advance, a lot of people are actually your school is doing wonderful stuff in terms of innovation with Lego and with cards to teach leadership. So everything you're doing here, again, is wonderful, and I'm inviting your school to come speak formally next week to showcase what you guys are doing. So that's right away. I'm sitting, talking about what you guys are doing. Why don't you come speak in the AGM? So in this spot here, where I'll be doing the training, again, there are experts to do so, but I'll be filling up the shoes for this one here. I will have NWU strong and present with Lienta, right? and again, Yvonne, talking about what they're doing in their courses in terms of creative pedagogies, right? So there's a piece for everyone. And the chapter, the administrative stuff, the governance, this is the stuff I took you through. That's the boring stuff. So in a few years, maybe one of you want to join me to advance my mission, what Prime is about, and do it for Africa. So that's kind of the one I was speaking about right now. And this is the chapters. The next piece is this one here. It's called Prime Champions. So Prime Champions, again, is we're like 800 plus schools. Not everyone is moving at the same pace, and we want it to be this way. We want this inclusiveness. We want schools to come at their own time. I mean, I hope you do much faster than what we did, and I love in a year what you're doing now is much better than what other schools are doing. But again, not everyone is doing it at the level we want. So we have this concept called Prime Champions. It began, I think, in Geneva in 2012, where some schools were doing wonderful stuff and could be modeled after, okay? So every 2 years we open a call, and then you have to submit what you're doing. And there's a whole link there to right now, I think out of South Africa, it's Cape Town University and Gibbs who are kind of prime champions. So the next best thing to do is just to partner with them too and meet with them too and join their events to see what they're doing and to try to accelerate things in your region. So prime champs kind of those schools that are doing a lot, and of course they're very nice SIP reports or progress reports to follow on because they do a very nice job doing it. And so much to be said about that, but that's only one piece of what's here. The question about the research, again, if you're an academic passionate about supply chain management, the 10th one is let me put it this way, my influence. So we're having the 10th one to be a working group for sustainable supply chain management. That's the one coming in. But again, there is one for the anti-corruption. They followed the SDGs, if you see, gender equity, and a lot of them are that way, sustainable finance, humanistic management. So I see a lot of room here. Now, warning, they're not as organized as we are as chapters now, but that's exactly what they're doing at the moment. So we noticed that this one has very bottom up, as we should be in research. We should be able to do what we want, but we're going to try to see some kind of mobilization of resources, getting communities, platforms that we can really make sure they bring in that part of research for Prime, right? So you can look at ours as top to bottom, or kind of like here. This is a nice way of doing things, very suggestive. And your deans are committed because they signed that letter. And this one is where your faculty members, again, are passionate about SDGs and try to just look within these networks of people doing stuff already. And a lot of them we're doing a world tour. So here's what we're doing for Africa. And it's in the, on Prime Chapter Africa website, there should be an agenda of events. And I don't know if the call went out, I'll send it to you, but it's a world tour where the top editors of JBE, Journal of Business Ethics, and Business and Society, A journals, both of them, are sitting and receiving your PhDs, your papers, junior faculty, and you sit in the room, they work with you, one-on-one to improve your paper, and they're kind of scanning what you guys are doing. If they can spot something nice, they'll just pull it in and say, maybe you can, publish. So top editors working there, and we do it in world tours. And again, I'll make sure to send that to you so you can benefit from that. But this is an ongoing, again, structure. They meet, they have sometimes their meetings, some groups are active than others, and they're led by 2 or 3 co-faculties. You can have a leadership role in that. You can work within the network if one of the topics touch on what you're doing. And these are the working groups. Plus, we're having a major kind of update for those, again, as we move around. So that's the third piece. So it's prime chapters, how we organize ourselves, the champions, which are kind of those who are doing it right and we can learn quick wins with them, and the working groups. And then this also, maybe 2.5 years back, they began this whole Prime Global Student, PGS, we call it, and it's regional. The nice thing about PGS, it's also organized in 17 chapters. So basically, students from your groups, you can run for elections. It's run by students, events are run, it's elected by students. They do their events, their agenda, but again, they have the 17 chapters that are. So we kind of do that thing because it's very hard also to reach, if you look at it as a pyramid, the whole masses of the students and the way we want to do it. And I really encourage you, those of you working with students or student organizations in your schools, to reach out to this. They have their own director in PGS, Paolo, and again, it's very centralized at Prime Global, but we try to support as chapters in this event. So if you saw maybe on the AGM next week, we invite the student. She's from Tsibas School, TBSIA. She's South Africa. All right. So again, the name of the school is not there, but it's South African school. She was elected, and she's the African for the year, the African student. TSBIS. No. No, it has a B in it. All right. So again, it's open elections. She runs. If the school's a member, the school is a network of SAPSA and a network of Prime. That's how we got to know them, and she learned about it. She just put herself out there. She got elected. So that's how it works. So again, this is another opportunity for you guys to have that at the student level. And once they have that, they start organizing things maybe locally or online. It's a very online community because students, again, finding funding for them is a thing. We do competitions, and then the winner, we fly them to attend we pay for their tickets to attend the global forum, which I'll talk about in a minute. So these are the pieces. So that's the 4 pieces, and we're still under Equip for Impact. The last piece, again, and we'd like to give it the package is again, the pedagogical advancements, where we noticed after a while that, and especially I have to say for Africa, if you teach students to be creative and to think out of the box, it's a very simple, not a simple way, all right? So if you just go do SDGs and you talk about it, but they don't feel empowered. They feel that this is just textbook stuff. They feel that, I don't know how to change the world. There's something to be said about the way we're teaching, right? And again, I think your school is doing a wonderful job here. And this is the kind of the I5 pedagogical framework where we build on what we call meaningful, joyful, iterative, social, active learning to make sure that these aspects are in the classroom and the students graduating or the leaders graduating from this, again, become empowered. I don't know if, some of us as professors do different things in our classroom. But the ones that, your students who graduate and come back and remember, you're the ones that you do a lot of stuff with them that are hands-on, experiential learning. So this is it began with a very generous fund from the Lego Foundation, therefore the colorful logos, and again, SDGs are colorful. But what happened is that it became more than just the Lego piece. It became any gamification, any simulation, any cards, any experiential learning, any industry guest speakers, any site visits, would all qualify under these. So this is in your SIP report. Again, you can report on all this creative teaching styles, all right? So this is kind of where we are. And the workshop on Wednesday next week is going to be basically what, kind of interaction. Here's what we do, maybe what are you doing? We're learning from each other all the time. They have a playbook, we call it playbook, it's Lego. And basically it's being updated now, and I'm encouraging, again, my colleagues who I'm listening about amazing stuff you're doing to submit what you're doing on the playbook so it becomes published again in terms of pedagogical advancement. If you go to the Academy of Management, I'm on the executive board of the African Academy of Management, and I attend the Academy of Management in the US every year. They have an MED section, all right? So people who are interested in publishing and doing research in advancing education, the group in Prime is always publishing on creative classroom stuff, so you can actually share what you're doing in a workshop in the US and make it maybe into a research paper that goes into these journals. So that's another, again, research learning. And that's why we don't dissect it, all right? So this is kind of where we equip you for impact, and we believe with all this, these different options, there's something, a piece for everyone in the room here. And I hope you, in the Q&A or in the discussion, we can really think creatively about what works for you. All right. Oh, I see now. All right. Sorry, these are the pieces. All right, so now the title change, make measurable progress. And this is I have 2 slides on this. There's so sharing and progress report, what we call the SIP report, was typically since 2007, every dean would simply sign a letter, pay the membership fees, which we compare to everything else I don't think it's a big one. And again, report on SIP reports. And if you don't submit the SIP report on time, your school becomes what we call non-communicating member. And after some time, you would drop off and you wouldn't even be, your dean cannot send that letter in or pay the fees. You have to report on progress. So this is kind of how we kept the network going. Now, last year again, it's been an active year for Prime Global. We worked on something called SIP Reporting 2.0. So it's a very lucky point for your school to join in at this moment, because you don't have to worry about the old way of doing things. You simply go on this platform where it's a kind of a survey linkage thing, and you pull down a menu and they tell you, are you doing this and not? But then they still allow you, because the PDFs were wonderful, don't get me wrong. We did wonderful stuff. We showcased lots of stuff. So there's space in that report also to share your pictures, talk about what you're doing. We call it like narrative or object, so you can share what you have. So it's still encompassing and very, knowledge sharing and everything creatively you do, you bring it back to the table, but there's like basic things we're trying to have. And the reason of that is not just, again, to say you're not doing it. It's basically to, whenever we get asked like, how many schools are doing this, or what are your schools doing? We needed a database. So out of the SIP reporting, the new way of reporting, and this is the questionnaire where you would be answering, and if you need, again, I'm not involved heavily in SIP reporting. We have part of the Prime Chapter Africa events, 2 training sessions per year. So and they're online. So, and again, it's self-learning, but if you want someone to orient you on the SIP reporting, again, we can help with that. You can go online again and just say SIP report 2.0. You'll have that nice, and I have all these links open for the working session here. And we can open it together and see what they're asking for and where you ask. And they kind of match the new principles. So there's like 7 sections. And you're saying, is your dean doing this? Is your strategy aligned? Is your teaching aligned? Is your research aligned? And you have that kind of very neat thing with a lot of room to do your own thing and to call it what it is for you. And you don't have to follow the tightness, because it was a big debate. Should we, we don't want to be another accrediting body. That's what we do not want to be. All right, and again, for the longest time, this was the success for Prime. So basically, schools would say that every time our dean would say, you have to report on what you're doing last year, and we have to, in 2 weeks before we become non-com members, we have to rush writing this report. We would send pictures, we'd do stuff, but then after the report would be done in that PDF format, we would have been very proud of what we did. So it's kind of like the basic thing you have as being members of, of Prime Network is that you have to report every year, in a very all-encompassing way, but now with some, structure, what you're doing. And after a while, when you're teaching in that classroom, when you have a guest speaker who talks about climate or something, I write down in my notebook, like, communicate to SIP reporting, and I just have a note there, and you earmark it, and then in the end of the year again, when you get that email, please send us what you're doing with students, please send us what you're doing with research, please send us what you're doing with teaching. You just, bundle it up and send it. I hope you do a better job than my school, because we're still not there, but again, it's kind of that kind of reporting, and your colleagues are doing something, you say, okay, maybe I should also do something, and it's kind of that build up, and there's a lot to be said about how this has been the main building block of what Prime is today. So from 2007 to last year, and maybe the few years past with chapters being very active, this was kind of it. 800 schools all over the world sending this in. And this was kind of what Prime is about. The new one is, because now we're going to have this nice reports, we're going to have what we call a platform, an online platform called Prime Commons. It's a go-to place, again, where you can go find other and search. It's a searchable repository for what schools are doing. So then again, if I'm in a working group, or if I'm in a teaching course, I teach OM, and then I want to see what another OM teacher is doing, I can just Google with those keywords. Again, it's still under design, but this is where we see ourselves being, and supporting SDGs as we move forward. So that was on, again, exchanging, So this was measuring impact, and then under exchanging knowledge, we have the Commons, which is the digital format. But every year we come together for what we call Prime Global, all right? And global, so everyone, it's an annual event where all the member school networks, 800, will join in and send representatives. It's in person, 1 year in New York. It's always in the week of mid-June, and it's online for the second year. So the one in the coming June is an online one. And last year I was physically in New York for it. And again, it's a nice community. It's like the conference for Prime. And it runs every year, again, as I mentioned, online and offline, alternatively. And because of the online version, the nice thing about it is that we have it for every timeline, and the show goes on for like, I think almost, not 24 hours, but something around the different time zones, and now even doing some kind of translation. So these are the inclusive events we'd like everyone to join in. Again, register online, it's there, search it, join in. If you are a member school, you don't pay fees. If you're a non-member school, you pay $100, and there's late fees even for registering online. So it's another privilege of you guys being a member school. You can just go and attend. And maybe if you want to be a speaker, just let us know. And they're always looking for different views. Actually, my colleague who's chairing a session is looking for speakers. So if you want to speak on responsible management education, what your school is doing, I can find out more about that and also maybe formally engage you. All right, so basically, just to summarize here, we basically organize, so we have our chapters, as I mentioned, to make sure that things are local, are relevant for us. We have the working groups for the research and to increase impact for research in Prime. We have the champions, and we have the global students. We have the Impactful 5, we have the Commons, and the Global Forum, right? And these are kind of how we do it. If you feel a bit overwhelmed, the way we all feel with Prime, because it's a lot, even with the name, just takes you like a long time, just what is Prime again? And your dean says it, I'm like, what is Prime again? It takes a while, right? So basically what you should do, I think, in this humble year you have, is to simply familiarize yourself with the starter kit. So your school, once they joined as a member, there's a starter kit. So just maybe ask Yvonne or whoever's running or leading Prime in your school to, again, bring in that kit and share it with you. I can't see properly from here, so I'll just go here. It's a starter pack and connect with your chapter share. I think you're doing a lot of that. Thank you for having me over. Attend a welcome workshop, which is kind of what we do online, but this is the physical one. Engage with other contact points and communicate benefits of Prime in your institution. This is a big one. So on the last one here, I don't know how your school works, but bringing Prime to your school, I mean, this is a great meeting. We don't have it at AUC. So in other words, I'm the Prime chapter chair, and I'm always saying, like, to my tiny Prime team at AUC, like, what are we doing more? And so they're usually busy with other stuff, and there's a lot to be done in the SIP report. But we don't meet this way over Prime. So I really, hats off, for what you guys are doing. And if you do this maybe on a regular basis, then you will have a team of Prime who are excited to join in, and the whole thing about what you're doing. And you can earmark it SDGs, where my school calls it, because they believe that that's the larger scope. Or you can earmark it and your initiative as Prime efforts in your school. But basically, there's a lot to be said about how you bring Prime inward to your school. And it doesn't just become, your school's a member, we submit a SIP report and we're done, right? So that's a big one. And if you just do that, I think you did a major one. Then you can start getting engaged, and if you want that visibility with the network, attend the global events, engage and take up leadership roles. Elections every 2 years open up. So maybe in 2 years from now, with my successor, we have some person from yours on the committee, and you're again kind of guiding how Prime should navigate the content and what should we do for events for us. And then work with working groups and everything. And then whether you like it or not, you're going to have to reflect through the SIP reporting and do some reflection as you move. But again, take your time navigating this. If you just do this piece right now and take your time in this journey and just submit your report, you're kind of in very good shape. I think this concludes what I have. Thank you.